You will not believe this.
I saw his hands before I saw his face. Oil-stained, steady, the kind of hands that didn't flinch even with my headlights cutting the rain in half and my driver whispering, "Ma'am, we should call security." My car had died on the shoulder like it was staged, hazard lights blinking, engine silent, my phone at 2%. And then he stepped out of the dark, one arm raised to show he wasn't a threat, the other holding a small umbrella that looked too small for his world. He leaned over my open hood as if he belonged there, like this wasn't a 7-figure car and I wasn't the woman people feared in boardrooms. "Pop the latch," he said calmly. That voice hit me like a memory I'd buried under quarterly reports. When he finally looked up, rain sliding down his jaw, I forgot to breathe. Because I knew him, not as a stranger, not as help, as the boy I used to love, the one I lost before I became the kind of woman who never loses. And when my driver said his name, softly, like a warning, my chest went tight. I had rejected a man on a blind date 2 hours earlier, but this was different. This was the past opening my door without permission. And the worst part? He didn't look surprised to see me. He looked disappointed, like he'd been expecting me to run again. If you're a woman who signs contracts worth more than most marriages, you learn how to read a room in 3 seconds. The restaurant had been chosen for me. Quiet corner, warm lighting, the kind of place where the staff pretends not to notice who's important. My assistant, Nora, had booked it under a different name anyway. Less noise, she'd said, as if the noise wasn't inside my chest. He stood when I arrived. Good posture, clean suit, the polite kind of attractive, safe, curated, the kind of man my board would approve of in a headline. "Claire?" he asked, smiling like this mattered. I nodded, already calculating exit routes the way I calculate risk. I wasn't supposed to be here. Tonight was supposed to be numbers and leverage and a final call with legal. But Nora had used that gentle voice she only used when she thought I'd forgotten I was human. "Just 1 hour," she'd begged. "A blind date, no expectations, no cameras." No expectations? I almost laughed. We sat. The table was too perfect. 2 glasses, a candle, the tiny clink of silverware in the background like it was rehearsed. He launched into the kind of conversation people use when they're trying to impress without revealing anything real. He told me about real estate, about building something long-term. He asked me what I did, as if he didn't already know. That was the first odd thing. Most men who recognized me had 2 settings, intimidated silence or overeager charm. He was neither. He watched me like he was trying to figure out what was underneath the suit, not what it cost. "So," he said after the appetizer arrived, "what do you do when you're not working?" The question hit a place I kept locked. I lifted my glass, bought myself a second of grace. "I work," I said. He smiled, almost sad. That's not an answer. It should have annoyed me. Instead, something colder slid down my spine. A memory. Soft laughter, rain on a cheap apartment window, a hand squeezing mine under a table. It was ridiculous. He wasn't him. He couldn't be. I looked down, focused on the neatness of the plate, the way the candlelight painted gold on the edge of my watch. He cleared his throat. "My sister said you don't like wasting time." I paused. "Your sister?" He hesitated, then recovered. "The friend who set this up. She said you're direct." Direct was one word for it. He leaned in slightly. "Can I ask you something honest?" I didn't answer, which in my world was permission. "What would it take," he said carefully, "for you to let someone in just a little without turning it into a negotiation?" My fingers tightened around the stem of my glass. I felt the urge to shut him down, not because he'd crossed a line, but because he somehow walked close enough to see there was a line at all. "You don't know me," I said. "I know. That's why I'm asking." Silence swelled between us, thick and embarrassing. I hated the way my body reacted, heart beating harder, throat tightening, like it recognized danger where there was none. Then he said it. One sentence, quiet, almost careless. "You look like someone who had to grow up too fast." For a second, I wasn't a CEO in a tailored dress. I was 20, sitting on a curb with my knees drawn up, watching a bus pull away and telling myself I didn't need anyone. I was 19, wiping tears before anyone could call them weakness. I was 17, learning how to smile through things that should have broken me. I blinked, and the restaurant came back into focus. I set my glass down slowly, as if sudden movement might reveal what I felt. My voice, when it came, was calm enough to fool anyone who wasn't looking closely. "This isn't going to work," I said. His expression flickered, surprise first, then something guarded. He nodded, like he'd expected it. "Okay," he said, too steady. "Is it something I said?" Yes, I wanted to confess, not because it was rude, but because it was true. Instead, I stood. "I'm not interested." The words were clean, professional, final. He rose as well, not reaching for my arm, not trying to argue. That almost made it worse. Most men fought the rejection to protect their pride. He simply accepted it, like he'd been rejected before and learned what it meant. "I hope you find what you're looking for," he said. I didn't say thank you. I didn't say anything at all. I walked away with my head high, heels clicking like punctuation. Halfway to the door, Nora's message buzzed my phone. "Board wants you on call in 30. Good. Normal. Safe. But as I stepped into the night air, I felt something else, an unease that didn't belong to the date, a pressure behind my ribs, as if my body knew I'd just rejected the wrong thing. I glanced back through the glass. He was still standing by the table, hands in his pockets, staring down at the candle, like he was trying to remember something he'd promised himself not to. And the strangest part? I had this sudden, irrational thought that I'd seen those hands before, not in a restaurant, in the rain. The city looked expensive from the back seat, wet pavement reflecting neon, umbrellas drifting past like shadows. I watched it through tinted glass, pretending distance could keep me untouched. "Home, ma'am?" Malik asked. "Office," I said. Of course. My phone buzzed. "Nora, they're waiting." Another, "Please eat something tonight." I stared at that second message longer than I should have, like hunger was an easier problem than the one I'd left at the restaurant. "You look like someone who had to grow up too fast." The sentence replayed with the persistence of a song you can't switch off. Not a flirtation, not an insult, a clean, quiet observation that had landed exactly where I keep everything locked. I answered the board line when it came in. "Claire," Evan said, smooth and urgent, "we need your decision tonight. If you hesitate—" "I won't," I cut in, too sharp. A pause. "Are you all right?" The question didn't feel like concern. It felt like someone noticing a crack in glass. "I'm fine," I said, because that's what I always said. 10 minutes. I ended the call before he could push. Rain thickened, turning the streetlights into smears of gold. Malik drove with the calm competence I pay for. He never asked about my silence, he just kept us moving. Then the dashboard chimed once. A warning light blinked. Malik's posture shifted. That's odd. Another light joined it. Then another, like the car was counting down. I sat up. "Malik?" "I've got it," he said, already guiding us right. "Hazards." The hazard lights began their orange pulse, reflected in the rain. The engine lost power with a soft, humiliating surrender. Malik steered us onto the shoulder beneath a street lamp that flickered as if it couldn't decide whether to stay on. We stopped. Not the calm quiet of luxury insulation, the dead quiet of something that has failed. My phone buzzed again. 1%. Of course. Malik opened his door and the rain rushed in. "Stay inside," he said. "I'll check the hood." I watched him step into the wet night and lift the hood. No smoke, no drama, just exposed metal shining under the light. He moved like a man who believes problems can be solved with his hands. I tried to breathe normally. It was only a car, a machine. But being stuck on the side of the road did something to me. It forced me to wait, to feel, to remember that control is a habit, not a guarantee. A pair of headlights slowed behind us. A second car pulled over. Careful distance, not too close. A door opened. A figure stepped out into the rain and lifted one hand, palm visible, the universal gesture of, "I'm not here to hurt you." And something inside my chest tightened so fast it felt like fear. Not because I thought he was dangerous, because the way he walked, steady, unhurried, felt familiar, like my past had found me in the dark. Malik straightened when the stranger approached the hood, shifting so his body sat between my door and the road. "Evening," the man said over the rain. "Saw your hazards. Need a hand?" "We're fine," Malik replied. The man nodded, accepting the boundary. A small, battered umbrella hung from his wrist. His eyes went to the engine, not to me. "Battery?" he asked. "Maybe," Malik said. "Mind if I look?" the man asked, still keeping his distance. I cracked my window an inch. Cold air rushed in. 5 minutes, I said. "That's all." His gaze flicked to mine. Steady. Fair. He moved with quiet competence. When he leaned under the hood, the street lamp caught his hands, oil-stained, nicked, real. My chest tightened like a memory trying to rise. "Jumper cables?" he asked. "In the trunk." "I've got mine," he said, already walking back to his car. As he passed my window, I saw the back seat, a child's booster seat, a tiny blanket, a stuffed rabbit. On the dashboard, taped crookedly, a child's drawing, 2 stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. A single dad. He grabbed cables and a worn tool bag. His phone lit his face for a second. He typed fast, jaw set, then exhaled. "My sitter," Malik said when Malik glanced at the phone. "Running late. My kid's asleep. I don't like being far." Then he was back at the front, down on one knee in the rain. Malik held the light. The man connected the cables and spoke in short instructions. "Tell me when you turn it." Malik turned the key. The engine coughed once, then died. The man didn't curse. He adjusted something, wiped rain from his brow with his wrist, and leaned in again. "Try again." Malik turned the key. This time the engine caught, rough, then steady. A breath left me that I hadn't realized I was holding. The man stood, rain clinging to his lashes, and finally looked directly at me. "That should get you where you're going," he said. Then, softer, like it escaped him, "Of course it's you." My pulse snapped sharp. I pushed my door open. "What did you say?" He froze for half a second, then stepped back, giving me space like he'd learned how to handle women who hate feeling cornered. The street lamp flickered and lit his face fully, and I knew, before he said my name, before Malik could intervene, that this wasn't a random breakdown. It was the past choosing the exact moment I couldn't escape. Malik said his name before I could stop him. "Liam?" he asked, careful, like he didn't want the answer. The man's shoulders tightened at the sound. Rain ran down his temple. He didn't smile. He just looked at me as if he'd been bracing for this moment longer than I had. I forced my voice to stay smooth. "You know him?" Malik's eyes flicked between us. "From," he started, then shut his mouth. Malik knew there were parts of my past he wasn't paid to touch. Liam kept his hands visible, palms open. "I didn't expect to see you," he said. That was a lie. I could hear it in the steadiness of his tone. I stepped closer, heels sinking into wet gravel. "You shouldn't be here," I said, and hated how small it sounded. His gaze dropped to my left hand, then lifted to my face. "Still working at midnight?" The question snapped me backward. Cheap coffee, a scratched table, my textbooks spread out while he fixed something with those same hands. A voice in my memory. "You don't have to carry everything alone." I blinked, and the present returned. Luxury car, rain, my driver watching like a guard. "Do you need anything else?" I asked, too formal, CEO voice. He flinched at it, just a fraction, but I saw it. "I'm good," he said. "Your car will hold. Keep the lights on a minute." He turned to go. And then my mouth betrayed me. "Liam, wait." He stopped without turning around, like he needed permission to face me. When he did, his eyes were darker than the night. "What?" My throat felt tight. Why are you here?" "He lived nearby," he said simply. "Not in your world, in the real one." The words should have made me angry. Instead, they made me feel exposed. His phone buzzed. He glanced down, and the hard edge in his face softened instantly. "Hey," he answered, voice gentler. "I'm coming. I told you I'd be right back." I couldn't hear the child, but I could see what fatherhood had done to him, made him softer in the places I'd become steel. He ended the call and looked at me again. "So now you know," he said. "I'm not a ghost. I'm not a coincidence." I opened my mouth. Nothing came. He took one step closer, close enough that the rain between us felt charged. And then he said it, the name I hadn't heard in years, barely audible. Claire Bear. My lungs forgot how to work, because no one called me that anymore, and the one person who did was standing in front of me, soaked through, looking at me like I'd broken something I couldn't buy back. "Don't," I whispered. His expression didn't change, but his eyes did. "I won't. Not again." Then he walked away into the rain, leaving my engine running, my hazard lights blinking, and my chest splitting open in a silence I couldn't negotiate my way out of. Malik waited until Liam's taillights disappeared before he spoke. "Ma'am, should I call security?" I stared at the road ahead, rain still ticking against the windshield like impatient fingers. "No," I said, too fast. Then calmer. "No, we're leaving." Malik closed the hood with care, climbed back in, and pulled onto the road. The engine sounded normal again, as if nothing had happened, like the universe hadn't just shoved my past into my lap. My phone was dead. The board could wait. We drove in silence for a full minute before Malik said, "Do you want me to reroute to the office?" "No," I replied, and then surprised myself by adding, "Just drive." The city blurred by. I could still see Liam's face under that street lamp, his eyes, the restraint, the way he'd stepped back like he was afraid to trigger something in me, as if I was the dangerous one. My mind tried to do what it always did, categorize, control, solve. Liam Hart, missing for years, now a single father, lives nearby, fixes cars in the rain like it's nothing. The facts didn't fit into any report. Then Malik's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. "Nora," he said. I swallowed. "Answer." He put it on speaker. Nora's voice came through tight. "Claire, where are you? Evan's asking for you by name. Legal is—" My phone died, I lied smoothly. A pause, then Nora softened. "Are you okay?" That question again, always at the worst moment. "I'm fine," I said, and Malik's eyes met mine in the rear view for a second, like he didn't believe me. Nora exhaled. "The decision can wait until morning. I'll manage." I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt the thing I never allow myself to feel, unprotected. "Thank you," I said quietly. Nora didn't respond right away, as if she was hearing the crack in my voice. Claire, did something happen tonight? The restaurant flashed in my mind, the blind date's polite smile, the question that had crawled under my skin, and my own words, clean as a guillotine. I'm not interested. Yes, I admitted, barely. What happened? Nora asked. I hesitated. I rejected someone, I said, and I think I deserved what came after. Nora went silent. Malik adjusted the mirror, focusing on the road like a man trying not to listen, but I could feel him listening anyway. Okay, Nora finally said, careful. We can talk tomorrow. Get home. When the call ended, the car felt smaller. I watched the rain smear the lights into long, trembling lines. The rejection from the restaurant suddenly felt childish, not because the man hadn't been fine, he was fine, but because I'd used rejection the way I use everything else, as a weapon to keep distance. And now, 2 hours later, the universe had placed someone in front of me who didn't fight my rejection, didn't chase it, didn't try to win. He simply stepped back. Not again, he'd said, as if he'd already rejected him once before, as if he was still bleeding from it. My chest tightened. Malik, I said, voice low. Yes, ma'am? Where did that man live? Malik didn't answer immediately. Then, a few blocks from here. I stared at the wet road, at the reflections, at the way the city kept moving like my heart wasn't stuck. Turn around, I said. Malik's hands tightened on the wheel. Ma'am? Turn around, I repeated. I'm not going home. And for the first time in years, I didn't know if I was chasing an apology or begging not to be rejected back. Malik didn't argue. He signaled, took the next exit, and circled back through quieter streets where the rain sounded louder because there were fewer cars. You want me to call ahead? He asked. No, I said. If he doesn't want to see me, I'll leave. We found Liam's car outside a small brick building. No doorman, no cameras, just a tired street lamp and a stairwell that smelled like wet concrete. A light snapped on upstairs. The curtain shifted. A child's face appeared at the window. My chest tightened. Not jealousy, something sharper. A life that depended on him. A softness I'd never had the right to demand. Ma'am, Malik warned, this is risky. I know, I whispered, and stepped out into the rain. I climbed the steps, coat pulled tight, heels slipping once on the edge of wet. I hesitated at the door. It opened before I could knock. Liam stood there, damp hair pushed back, a towel on his shoulder like he'd been interrupted mid-fatherhood. His eyes widened, then hardened. You followed me. Yes, I admitted. I shouldn't have, but I... Why? He asked, low. Behind him, a small voice. Dad? His whole body softened without him even turning. I'm here, Rosie. Go back to bed. Footsteps padded away. Rosie, I repeated, quietly. My daughter, he said. Nightmares. I swallowed. Her mother? Not in the picture, he cut in. Final. Rain dripped from my lashes. I looked at his doorway, at the warm light behind him he was blocking like a shield. I'm sorry, I said, for the restaurant, for how I ended it. He gave a humorless exhale. You don't even know what you're apologizing for. I know I used rejection like it couldn't hurt anyone, I said, but it does. For a second, something flickered in his eyes, pain he didn't want me to see. He looked away, jaw tight, like he was counting. His phone buzzed. He checked the screen, and the hardness in his face changed into pure urgency. She's stuck, he muttered. What? I asked. The sitter. Her car broke down on the highway. He stepped aside, decision already made. Come in. Quiet. I froze. Liam, I need to pick her up, he said, voice clipped with stress, and I can't take Rosie. My heart tripped. You want me to... He looked past me to Malik. Can he drive? Malik straightened. Yes. Liam's gaze snapped back to me, steady and desperate in a way that stripped all our history down to one simple need. I need to know my kid is safe. Safe. The word hit harder than any board vote. I nodded once. Okay. Upstairs, a door creaked open. Rosie peeked out, messy hair, flushed cheeks, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Her eyes moved to me, curious, not afraid. Dad, is she the rain lady? Liam's shoulders loosened a fraction. Yeah, he said softly. She's helping. Rosie stared like she was deciding if I belonged in their world. I lowered my voice, gentle, human. Hi, Rosie. She blinked, then lifted the rabbit like an introduction. Bunny says hi, too. And in that ridiculous, tender moment, the universe did what boardrooms never could. It made me real.
Rosie didn't go back to bed right away. She sat on the couch in oversized pajamas, legs tucked under her, Bunny's ear in her mouth like it was a pacifier she refused to admit she still needed. The apartment was small, warm, lived in, nothing polished, nothing staged, a faint smell of detergent and microwave popcorn, a toy car on the floor, a stack of bills on the counter held down by a mug that said, "Number 1 Dad" in chipped letters. Liam moved fast. Keys, jacket, a whispered promise to his daughter. I'll be back soon. Malik's driving. Lock the door behind us. His eyes met mine for a second before he left, and I felt the same thing I'd felt on the roadside, that he didn't trust me with his heart, but he trusted me with what mattered more. When the door closed, the silence was suddenly intimate in a way that made me want to stand up and flee. Rosie stared at me. "What's your name?" she asked. I opened my mouth and almost said my last name out of reflex, like a shield. "Claire," I said instead. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. "Dad gets quiet when it rains." My throat tightened. "Yeah?" "She says rain is loud." She frowned, searching for the word. "Like thinking." I laughed once, soft and startled. That's a good way to say it. Rosie tilted her head. "Are you Dad's friend?" The question landed sharp. I could have answered 1,000 ways. CEO, stranger, problem. "I used to be," I said carefully. "A long time ago." Rosie studied me, then pointed to a framed photo on a shelf beside the TV. "That's you." My entire body went cold. I stood slowly and walked closer, as if fast movement would break something. The photo was old, printed, slightly faded. 2 teenagers on a cheap beach blanket, sunburned and laughing. A boy with messy hair and a grin I recognized in Liam's mouth, and a girl with bright eyes who looked softer than I remembered being. Me. My fingers hovered over the frame but didn't touch it, like touching it would confirm it was real. "He keeps it there," Rosie said. I asked. He said it's before. Before. I swallowed. "Did he tell you who I am?" She shook her head. "He just said you were important, but not safe." The words hit like a slap. Not safe. I looked around the room again, at the worn sofa, the kids' drawings taped to the wall, the quiet evidence of a man rebuilding a life with his hands and his patience. Then I heard my own voice from years ago, colder than any winter. "I don't need you. I need a future." I sat back down before my knees betrayed me. "I'm sorry," I whispered, though Rosie didn't know what for. A half hour later, keys rattled outside and the door opened. Liam stepped in, damp again, shoulders tense. Then he saw Rosie safe, Bunny tucked under her arm, and his whole face loosened. "Hey, bug, go back to bed. I'll tuck you in." She patted off, but not before glancing at me like she was memorizing my shape. When Rosie's door clicked shut, Liam leaned against the wall, exhaling. "Thank you," he said. I nodded toward the photo. "You kept it." His eyes followed mine, and something hard came into his expression.
Old pain, old restraint. I tried not to, he said quietly. Didn't work. The air between us tightened, full of words we'd avoided for years. I thought you disappeared. You just left. He laughed once, bitter. I didn't leave the way you think. My chest tightened. Then explain it. He pushed off the wall, moved closer, but stopped with space between us, like he still respected a boundary I didn't deserve. I got accepted, he said. That program out of state, the one you told me to take. I remembered begging him to go, telling him we'd make it work, that love could survive distance. I wrote you every week. I called. Your number stopped working. I felt my face drain. No, that's not... He cut in, voice controlled. I went to your building. Security said you didn't live there anymore. Then a man met me outside. My heart lurched. My father. Liam's jaw tightened. He told me you were done. He said you outgrew me. He said if I showed up again, you'd pee for it. I stared at him, the room suddenly tilting. That's impossible, I whispered, even as my body knew it wasn't. I believed him, because the next day I got your email. One sentence. He looked at me, eyes dark. Don't contact me again.
My stomach dropped. I couldn't breathe. I never sent that, I said, voice cracking before I could stop it. Liam held my gaze like he'd waited years to see if I'd lie. Then who did? He asked. And in my mind, a chain of memories snapped into place. My father's calm smile, Nora's predecessor managing my inbox, the way my life had been filtered through other hands while I was too busy becoming untouchable. I stared at Liam, at the tired lines near his eyes, at the photo I hadn't known he kept. I thought you rejected me first, I whispered. He swallowed, and when he spoke, it was almost gentle. We were both rejected, just not by each other. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded. And somewhere deep inside me, a fear rose, clean and terrifying. If this was the truth, then everything I built on top of that lie was standing on nothing.
The apartment felt too warm for what he'd just said. My father. The blocked calls. The email that sounded like me. Do you still have it? I asked. Proof. Liam hesitated, then unlocked his phone and held it out. A screenshot, years old. One sentence. My name at the bottom. Don't contact me again. The words looked like my handwriting in digital form. Blunt, efficient, cruel. My stomach rolled. I never sent that, I said, and my voice cracked on never. Liam didn't gloat. He just watched me, like he'd spent years waiting to learn if I was lying. Then someone sent it for you, he said, and I believed them, because you were already disappearing behind other people. My own phone buzzed in my pocket, charged now alive again. Missed calls stacked up. Nora, legal, the board, then Evan. I stared at the screen, at the way my life tried to reclaim me with one ring. I declined the call. Liam's eyes flicked to my hand. You just ignored your board. I ignored a man who thinks my attention is a commodity, I said, surprised by my own honesty. Tonight, I'm done being managed. The silence that followed wasn't comfortable. It was real. I'm sorry, I said finally, for believing the lie, for letting you take the hit for a war you weren't even in. Liam's jaw tightened. His gaze drifted toward Rosie's door, and I understood. His heart doesn't get to be fragile anymore. Apologies don't change diapers, he said quietly, and I can't afford to let you break her world. I reached into my purse on instinct, pulling out a business card like it was a shield. At least let me. Don't. He cut in, calm but firm. I'm not a project, and I'm not for sale. Heat rose in my face. Shame. Then something cleaner, respect. I slid the car back in. Outside, a car slowed. Headlights washed across the blinds. Liam's posture stiffened. What? I asked. Neighbors, he said. Or someone curious why a luxury car is outside my building. My pulse spiked. One photo, and I'd be a headline by morning. Investors would call it instability. The board would call it weakness. My old reflex screamed, run. Then a soft cough came from Rosie's room, and Liam's shoulders softened again. This was his life, quiet, stubborn, real. I lifted my chin. If it becomes noise, I said, I'll handle it. With truth, not money. Liam studied me. Truth is expensive for you, Claire. I know, I whispered, but I can pay it. My phone buzzed again. Nora's message. Evan scheduled a press dinner tomorrow. Your name is already on the list. A stage. A trap. I looked at Liam. Tomorrow morning, I said, voice steady. Coffee. Daylight. No masks. If I show up, will you? He didn't smile. He just held my gaze. Like the answer mattered more than the question. We'll see, he said softly. If you don't run. I didn't sleep. At home, the penthouse felt like a museum that had been built around a woman who no longer existed. Glass walls, perfect lighting, silent furniture. I took off my heels and stood barefoot on marble, staring at the city as if it could explain how my entire past had been rewritten without my permission. At 4:17 a.m., Nora called. I answered on the first ring. Claire, she said carefully. Where are you? Evan is. I know, I interrupted. I saw the press dinner. Silence. Then he put your name on the list. Yes, I paced, palm pressed to my forehead. And I think it's a setup. He wants me visible, controlled. Nora exhaled, relieved that I'd said it out loud. What do you want me to do? The old me would have said, crush him. The new, shaky me said, delay it. Tell him I'm sick. Tell him I'm unavailable. I don't care. Okay, Nora said. Are you sure? I thought of Liam's face in the doorway. Truth is expensive for you. I'm sure, I whispered. After we hung up, I stood in the dark kitchen and made tea I didn't drink. My mind kept looping back to one sentence. Don't contact me again. If my father had done it, then he hadn't just controlled a relationship. He'd shaped the entire woman I became. By sunrise, my eyes burned. I dressed anyway. Simple, no armor. No jewelry. Hair pulled back. A coat that didn't scream money. At 8:02, Malik drove me to the cafe I chose deliberately. Not the kind of place I'd ever be photographed. Small, warm, smelled like cinnamon and coffee. A bell over the door that chimed like something from a different life. I arrived early and sat with my hands wrapped around a mug, watching steam rise and disappear. Then the bell rang again. Liam walked in, shoulders tense, scanning the room like he expected a trap. He wore jeans, a dark hoodie, and tired eyes that had already lived a full day. In his hand, a small pink backpack. My throat tightened. Rosie, daycare, he said, setting the backpack on the chair beside him. Drop-off was complicated. He sat across from me, not beside. Still distance, still protection. I swallowed. Thank you for coming. I didn't come for you, he said flatly. I came to see if you'd actually show up. Fair. We sat in silence for a moment that felt heavier than the cafe's entire noise. Finally, I said, I called Nora. The press dinner is canceled. His brows rose slightly. You canceled something your board wanted. Yes. And they let you? I let out a breath that almost turned into a laugh. They didn't, but they'll survive. He studied my face like he was looking for the punchline. Why are you doing this? I wanted to say, because I missed you. Because I'm lonely. Because I'm tired of being untouchable. But he'd warned me, don't reach out because you're lonely tonight. So I answered with the truth I could stand behind. Because I need to know what was real, I said. And because Rosie pointed at your shelf and said I wasn't safe. Liam's jaw tightened. That hurt, I added quietly. But she's not wrong. I've made a career out of being sharp. His gaze stayed on mine. And now, I'm asking for something I don't ask for, I said, voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. A chance, not a deal. He leaned back. eyes narrowing like he was testing the word. A chance to do what? To talk, I said. To fix what was broken by someone else. To stop pretending none of it mattered. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, face changing. What? I asked. He turned the screen slightly, so I could see the photo. Rosie, holding Bunny, standing beside Liam's shelf at home, pointing at the framed beach photo of us, smiling like she discovered a secret. Under it, a message from the sitter. She keeps asking if the rain lady is coming back. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. Liam looked at me, voice low. This is the part where you decide if you want the mess. The cafe's warmth felt suddenly fragile, because he wasn't offering romance. He was offering reality, and reality didn't care that I was a CEO. It cared whether I stayed. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know what I wanted, because I did, but because wanting something and choosing are two different skills. One is easy. The other costs you everything you hide behind. Liam watched me like he'd seen this moment before, like he'd watched me swallow my feelings, stand up, and walk away with my chin high. I set my mug down carefully, hand steady on the outside, shaking on the inside. I want the mess, I said. His eyes narrowed. Say it like you mean it. I swallowed. I want your real life, I repeated. Not a version that fits my calendar. Not something I can control. The real one. Silence. Then he asked the question that made my throat tighten. And when it gets uncomfortable, he said, when your world starts asking questions, when your name is on a headline next to mine, and people dig into your past like it's a scandal. My pulse jumped because he wasn't guessing. He was predicting. I'll handle it, I said, with truth. Liam's jaw flexed. Truth from you is expensive. I know. I forced myself to hold his gaze. But I'm done paying with my life instead. His phone buzzed again. He checked it, then looked back at me with something like warning. My sister just texted, he said. She saw you at the restaurant last night. My stomach dropped. Your sister set up my blind date. A beat. Liam didn't look proud of it. He looked tired. Yeah. My mind flashed to the man across the table. The way he'd watched me. The way he'd known just enough. It hadn't been a coincidence. It had been an experiment. A trap with soft edges. I exhaled slowly, forcing air into my lungs. So the rejection, Liam's mouth tightened. She wanted to see if you changed. A hot, sharp shame rose in me because I hadn't. Not then. Not until a breakdown on a dark road forced me to face myself. I didn't know, I said, about any of this. About you being here. About her. I believe you, Liam said. And the words were quiet but heavy. But believing you isn't the same as trusting you. I nodded once. Then don't trust me yet. He blinked, surprised. Test me, I said. Let me earn it. Liam stared like he was measuring whether that was another CEO tactic. Then his phone buzzed again, this time a call. He answered, voice instantly gentle. Hey, Bug. Rosie's voice was small through the speaker, but clear enough to pierce me. Dad, is the rain lady there? Liam's eyes flicked to me. I leaned in slightly, careful, like you approach a frightened animal. Hi, Rosie, I said softly. It's me. A pause. Then a whisper. Bunny says hi. My chest tightened so hard I almost couldn't speak. Tell Bunny hi back, I managed. Rosie yawned. Dad, can she come when it rains again? Liam's throat moved as he swallowed. We'll see, he said carefully. Okay, go be brave. Okay, Rosie murmured, and the call ended. The cafe noise returned, but everything inside me was quiet in a new way. Like something sacred had just been placed in my hands, and I was afraid to breathe wrong. Liam looked at me for a long moment. This isn't a movie, he said. I can't give you a clean restart. I don't want clean, I said. I want honest. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low. Then here's honest. Rosie comes first. Always. And if you vanish even once, I won't let you back in. My heart hammered, but the fear wasn't the old fear of being owned. It was the fear of finally being seen. I won't vanish, I said. He studied me, searching for the old Claire, the one who ran. Then he nodded once. Not forgiveness, Not surrender. Permission. Pick a day, he said. Not a bored day. Not a press day. A real day. I swallowed. Saturday. He looked skeptical. You're free on Saturdays? I'm making myself free, I said. He exhaled, almost a laugh. Okay, Saturday. Park. Morning. Rosie likes the swings. My eyes stung unexpectedly. I'll be there. I reached into my bag. Not for a business card, not for money, but for something I hadn't carried in years. A pen and a small notebook. I wrote it down like it mattered more than any meeting. Saturday. Park. Morning. Swings. Liam stood, slipping the pink backpack strap over his shoulder. He paused, then looked down at me. One more thing, he said. What? If this turns into noise, he said. You don't get to handle it alone. You tell me. I nodded. I will. He started toward the door, then stopped, just once, like he was fighting an instinct. He turned back. Not close, not touching, just near enough that I could hear the truth in his voice. I didn't stop loving you, he said quietly. I just stopped bleeding for you. My breath caught. I understand, I whispered. He held my gaze for one last second, then left. And as the bell over the cafe door chimed, my phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. A photo attachment. It was from the restaurant last night. Me standing up, cold expression, walking away. Under it, one line. The CEO still rejects people like it's nothing. Want this buried? My blood turned to ice. I stared at the screen, then at the empty chair across from me, and realized the final test wouldn't be romance. It would be whether I could choose truth when truth threatened everything. I typed one reply, fingers steady. No. And for the first time in my life, that word didn't feel like power. It felt like freedom.
If this story stayed with you, the next one is already on your screen. Click to keep watching and subscribe for more real stories like this.